Hey crew, I hope everyone had a fabulous weekend. Time to relax and just be with family and take a moment. Today I am going to start reading our Counterfeit Constitution. It's going to be our little book study that we're going to be doing over the next few videos. And it is Real Kids, Real Places, so we're going to be traveling to Washington, D.C. And hopefully we're going to learn more about the Constitution and have a little fun with it as well. Okay? So, this story is by Carole Marsh. And the winner is... Woohoo! Christina squealed with excitement. Grant hurried into the kitchen to see what all the commotion was about. His sister quickly seized him around the waist. "What are you doing?" Grant cried. It's here. Christina swung him around until he thought he might throw up. "Put me down," he squealed between breaths. Christina dropped him abruptly. Grant scrambled to his feet, ready to do battle with his sister, but she had already danced away towards Mimi, who was waving a red, white, and blue priority mail envelope. Rubbing his sore bottom, Grant wandered over to the counter next to his sister and grandmother. "Will anyone who's normal around here please tell me what's going on?" he asked. Mimi let out a little breath. "A class won my contest. I can't wait to tell you who it is." She ripped open the envelope. "And the winner is?" While Mimi slid the letter out of the envelope, Christina and Grant jock-eyed for position over her shoulder. "The 4th grade class from Elsie Collier Elementary School in Mobile, Alabama," Mimi shouted. "It says here that they're going to study the U.S. Constitution soon, so we've all been invited to join them on a field trip to Washington, D.C. They've asked me to be a chaperone." Christina and Grant gave each other a high-five slap. "Way to go, Mimi," shouted Grant. Mimi slid the class picture out of the envelope. "Is that them?" Grant asked. He and Christina looked at all the smiling faces and couldn't help smiling too. They were going to Washington, D.C. "Where's the phone?" Mimi asked. "I'm going to call and accept this invitation right now." Christina listened to Mimi's side of the conversation. "The National Archives? Of course, that sounds wonderful. As a matter of fact, I need to go there and research my next book. What timing?" Christina was convinced this was going to be a great adventure. Her grandmother, Mimi, who spent most of her time writing children's mystery books, loved history, and especially loved to visit Washington, D.C. To actually be in the same room with the U.S. Constitution gave Mimi bumps. "Can my pen pal meet us there?" Christina asked. Christina's pen pal, Alicia, lived in Washington, D.C., and although they had been writing to one another for over a year, they had never met. It would be perfect timing. "I don't see why not. I'll call Alicia's parents tonight," said Mimi. By the next morning, everything was set. They would all leave the following weekend, and Alicia and her brother Mike would meet them at their hotel in Washington, D.C. So to give you a little background, this is the group of students that won a contest to be in this book. How exciting, how cool. Christina heaved her yellow duffel bag atop the others, waiting to be loaded into the belly of the shiny excursion bus parked at the curb of the school. As they waited for the signal to board the bus, Mimi was having second thoughts. Children were everywhere. Some were chasing each other, while others clung desperately to their parents, as this was going to be their first trip without them. Parents were asking last-minute questions, and a woman with a megaphone was barking orders to get the children in order. Mimi held her hands to her cheeks. "There seems to be hundreds of them," she exclaimed to Christina. Their teachers, Miss Hudson and Miss Watley, heard Mimi and saw the alarm on her face. Miss Hudson had seen it on new chaperones before. As she approached Mimi, she laughed, stuck out her hand, and shook Mimi's with fast, friendly exuberance. "I know things seem a little crazy right now, but things will calm down," she said. "I'm Miss Hudson. We are so excited to have been chosen as the winners of your contest." Mimi watched as one of the boys ran by and dangled a gummy worm near Christina's face. Stop that this instant, Thatch, or I'll call your parents and have them come get you, Miss Hudson warned. She patted her brown hair into place. Mimi's eyes narrowed as any grandmother's would at unruly children. She wasn't prepared for Miss Hudson's reply. Spunky little bugger, her laugh. She laughed, her eyes twinkling. She put her arm through Mimi and led her to where the bus stood. Come, and I'll introduce you to our principal, Miss McRae. They walked over to a woman with a clipboard cradled in one hand and a megaphone in the other. She was wearing an Atlanta Braves baseball cap. Miss Hudson made the introductions. I'm delighted to meet you, Miss Marsh. I'm a big fan of yours. Principal McRae tucked her clipboard under her arm and shook hands with Mimi. Later, I want to ask you all about your life as a mystery writer, but for now, duty calls. She jiggled the megaphone. It's time to get these children loaded onto the bus. Ta-weet! The principal put her lips to a whistle and blew into the bright blue and red megaphone. The children instantly stopped what they were doing. Okay, kids, we're going to take roll call now. Just like in class, she instructed them. Aww, everyone groaned. The megaphone returned to Miss McRae's mouth. We wouldn't want to leave anyone, behind, would we? No, they all shouted. All right then, let's load 'em up, her voice boomed. The children hovered around her, anxiously waiting to get started. Miss Hudson, standing alongside Mimi, beamed in happy anticipation. Two boys nearby were talking loudly about the fun they were going to have. Shh, she tapped her lips. Listen so you can hear when Miss McRae calls your name. As I call your name, please get on to the bus, Miss McRae said. She waved her finger at them, one at a time, mind you. Delaney, Brody, Dylan, Jonathan. As Jonathan started to pass her, she stopped him. All right, Jonathan, give that frog of yours to your parents. He's not going on this trip with us. Aww, Jonathan said as he stepped out of line. He handed the squirming frog to his mother and ran back to the bus. His friends giggled. Kendall, Bradley, JC, James, Kellen, Thatch, she said, giving him a stern look. I better not see those gummy worms in anyone's hair during this bus ride. Yes, ma'am, he replied, his mouth full of gooey candy. He gave the other boys a sheepish look as he boarded the bus. Kyla, Aiden, Caitlin, Charlie, Alyssa, Megan, Drake, Heather, and anyone who gets car sick, sit near the front, please, she advised. On and on it went. A stream of children patiently waited their turn to board the bus as Principal McRae continued to call their names. Tatum, Tristan, Cartasia, Madeline, Holly. They boarded the bus, each jostling to be first up the steps once their name was called. When Miss Ray got to Emily, she paused. All right, Emily, hand it over. The principal stuck out her hand. Emily reached into her pocket and withdrew a slingshot. Thank you, Emily, the principal said. You may board the bus now. Devin, Diamond, Kylie, Chris, Hillary, Madison, all tangled. A tall, gangly boy was next in line. As Principal McRae started to call his name, she noticed that he was standing in front of her, his stocking feet. Hold it, Gavin. Where are your shoes? The principal asked. The other kids snickered. Gavin hung his head. Dylan threw them on top of the bus. Everyone turned and looked at Dylan. Did not. Did too, Gavin shot back. Okay. The back of Principal McRae's neck was beginning to ache. She rubbed it with her free hand. Let's get everyone loaded, then we'll send someone to find your shoes, she sighed. Joseph, Michaela, Leo, Allison, Abel, Gavin. Miss McRae paused. Oh dear, 2 Gavins. Well, we'll just have to watch that. She checked his name off the list. She took a deep breath and continued to call names. Preeka, Tristan, another Tristan. Jeffrey, Andrew, LaFrance, and finally, Autumn, she said with a smile. The other chaperones boarded the bus last, each shaking Mimi's hand and saying how glad they were to have her join them. Well, that's it, Principal McRae remarked, except for a guest of honor who's running a little late. Great. I wish we could just get going, Mimi thought as she pulled a book to read from her bag. Suddenly, a hush came over the bus. Mimi looked up just in time to see a familiar, white-haired man trudging up the steps. George Washington had just boarded the bus. As Mimi looked up in surprise, George Washington winked at her and took a seat across the aisle from her. Thump, bump. The bus lurched away from the curb. They were on their way to Washington, D.C. All right. I'm going to stop there, and we will continue reading over the next several days. So right now we just have a group of students, I believe, 4th grade. So again, this 4th grade classroom, and Mimi they are on their way to Washington, D.C., and we will see from there. What I want you to think about right now, or you can even write it down, is I want you to write down a few predictions. What do you think is going to happen in our story? Okay? So I want you to write down a few predictions. What do you think is going to happen? Remember, our predictions need to be, they need to start with I predict or I think. And then based on what we've read so far, the title, some of the pictures that we've seen, what is your prediction about the rest of this book? All right, so that's what I want you to do. And then when I come back next time, and as we continue to read, I want you to see if your prediction was correct. All right, I will see you next time.